about a couple of months. The first time I heard about XConf, I was pretty excited about talking. I mean, the first thing that came to my mind was to talk about something that I did in college, something that I was really looking for an opportunity to present to a pretty cool audience. So I saw this as an opportunity for that, and it's something that we did in the research lab, and I'll try and bring it out in 10 minutes to the best of my ability. Yeah, right. This can probably be an inspiration for you to contribute to what is now an open source project, or it can simply be an inspiration to do something on your own as well. So feel free to comment on it or make fun of it, whatever.
Holding the remote other way around. Yeah.
Right. Like I was saying, the context switch. Just before we get started, I'd like to talk a little bit about what a cache is. Sounds geeky. What's a cache? A cache is something that you have at a client side or for your local reference in order to avoid the latency that is involved in transfer of data either from another end or from another source of data. So there are different kinds of caches. You can talk about a browser cache, you can talk about a DNS cache, a processor cache, or an operating system cache, but fundamentally all these things work on exactly the same principle, and that is the fact that a cache can avoid latency. Now, a simple idea like this can actually be put to very effective use. Take for example your browser cache itself. I think it was quite optimistic for somebody who designed a browser to actually say that a least recently used algorithm would be a very effective thing in something like a browser. That doesn't make any semantic sense to me at all in a way. Why would I ever think that something that was used very recently is going to be used in the near future? But fortunately or unfortunately, it's been working. And that's just the way it is. But that's not going to be true when you're going to port exactly the same kind of ideas to different systems as well. That is exactly what we kind of try to capitalize on. It's not going to be as effective as it probably would be in something that's not so mobile, like a desktop. So it was a simple idea that actually inspired us into doing something like that. I'd like to talk about the different factors that we took into consideration to build the framework. I'm not going to get into the code base at all. It's just going to give a broad idea of what the code base is built around and basically the idea as such. Right. Just in the interest of time, I'd like to limit this discussion to just an NN query and what basically I'm talking about when I say mobile systems. NN query stands for nearest neighbor. What's the nearest neighbor query? Let's say I take my mobile phone out right now and I ask for what the nearest hotel is. And I get a response saying that your nearest hotel is near, say, the Olympia Tech Park and probably details about the hotel and the menu card, etc. That's basically what the NN query does. And like most of you probably understand, this is really the future of what mobile computing is. Information systems are definitely going to become location dependent, and that's just the way it is. There's nothing to really change about that. Yeah, so just the prequel. As the request contents will be the location of the client, which is typically the latitude and the longitude, and probably the type of resource that you're looking for, be it a hotel or a theater or a hospital or whatever it is. And the response content will be the location of the nearest resource, the details about the resource, and something called Voronoi. I'll explain what that is in a brief period. So when you actually send your details, which would be your location and the kind of resource that you're looking for, the server needs to do some sort of computation in order to understand what exactly you're looking for and give you your nearest neighbor. So to briefly tell you how the whole thing works, the server would have a huge map. Let's say this is the Chennai map, and these are the hotels in Chennai. You have what is called as a Voronoi, which is nothing but a complex mathematical polygon, which is drawn around a hotel. Right. Now, what can be assured in a Voronoi is that when a given user is inside a Voronoi, you can be sure of the fact that the nearest resource to him will be the resource within that particular Voronoi. So if you identify the user to be here, his nearest resource would be that, and let's say if he was here, it would be that. So that really saves you time at runtime in order to be able to identify what his nearest resource is. Now, this is generally how NN queries work, and that's how location-dependent systems work as such. Right. Now, if you were to use recency as a parameter in a caching system, it would kind of be stupid. So there are a lot of questions that can be answered, which will probably help you build a more effective caching system at the operating system level itself and not just at the browser level. So what does the biker want? If by some mechanism I'm able to predict and say that within the next 10 minutes the biker will want a theater or the biker will want, say, a hospital. Just keep in mind that I'm just restricting myself to an NN query, which is the nearest neighbor query. So if by some means you're able to predict the fact that a biker would want a particular resource, that would be a reason for you to keep something in a cache and to not keep something in a cache. That's a decision that's a question that will help you take that decision. Where will the biker be? Now, for example, I go to Olympia Tech Park and ask for the nearest hotel, and then I move towards Kasi Theatre, which is about a kilometer away, and ask for the nearest hotel. That's not relevant data to me anymore, which means that that's another question which will help me identify as to whether data there is relevant or not. Things get stale. Now, let's say, for example, I ask for a hotel now, and about a couple of hours later, I ask for something else. It doesn't make sense keeping things in the cache simply because I probably consume the resource and it's not going to be as effective as it would be if it wasn't stale, right? And will you ever come back again? Now, this is one of the most important things. The most fundamental thing about a location-dependent system is that data is relevant only in a particular area, which means that your nearest hotel is your nearest hotel only as long as it is your nearest hotel. So if say you're around Olympia Tech Park, it would make more sense trying to keep the data, and if you moved away, it probably wouldn't. So these are probably the kind of some commonsensical questions that you can ask yourself and come up with factors. So one of the things that somebody came up with to be implemented in the framework were a set of factors that would identify these things. I just listed these things here, which would be area of the Voronoi and inverse time interval and a whole lot of probably mathematical junk actually. So that's basically something that would give you a replacement score and which will actually help you judge whether data is worth being kept in a cache or not. Right. I'm actually done with the presentation, but I want to talk a little further as well.
2 minutes.
Let's take a minute and actually think of whether a cache can do more than what I just said. A cache is not something that can just hold data which is relevant for you in the near future. What if by some means you're able to predict the kind of data that you will need and prefetch the data and put it into your cache and not just hold data that you already have with you? If that is something that can be done, I think that is something that is really cool, and that is something that is what we're actually currently working on. And in fact, the mobile system has been ported to a Firefox extension which is available in this URL. So to put a long story short, what the extension can actually do right now is it'll study a whole set of user requests for a very long time, and finally it'll start predicting what your actions will be. So when you actually visit Gmail, and the Firefox will probably predict the fact that you're going to hit Facebook next, which is possibly what you guys probably do, and it'll prefetch Facebook contents onto your cache, and finally when you do hit Facebook, it's up in a flash. So I think that kind of a system is pretty cool, especially in a place where there are a lot of bandwidth limitations, especially in I think rural areas in India. And basically what I'm expecting out of this presentation is probably a couple of guys who are interested in probably continuing what was really a dream project for a couple of us in college, and we can probably take it offline and keep the community alive. The extension is something that we wanted to work on as well. With that, I think I'm done. Thank you so much for the opportunity.